Back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Tailor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today we're going to do kind of a random flight on some things. We're going to be discussing balance of power and persuasion, and how to kind of create. I mean, we've had this discussion before. We're talking about uh, being in a niche or being a generalist, but
Yep.
also from a standpoint of authority and how to create authority, even if you're not, cornering yourself in a niche, how to do that, like
Right.
celebrity, local authority, exclusivity, supply, demand. But I think regardless of whether you niche or not, you have to create some kind of power, balance of power there that shifts back towards you. Because if the power is in the consumer, which, often happens if you're a commodity,
Yep.
you're in a
Exactly.
bad place. That's a bad place to be.
Right. Yeah. So you got to have something that stands out,
Absolutely.
whether you're in a niche or not. And I
Right.
think these do apply either way. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that very strongly, I talk to them all the time, that just don't want to niche the way marketing has been taught in the last couple of years, at
Right.
least, where
Yep.
it's like niche, 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 keep going down to niches until you're just super specific and all this stuff. And
Right.
that can get exhausting.
Yep.
But these strategies work because I think everybody falls into a niche.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just now because marketing's trying to be more and more unique, right? And try to say something different. It's no longer enough to be like in the personal development niche or in the sales niche, right? Sales training niche. Now they
Right.
want you to be a sales trainer to realtors who, do $1 million a year,
Right.
while on vacation.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
something.
It's like
Some weird
okay.
combination of people.
That's that's only who I work with, right?
Yeah, that's the only people I work with. And I get the argument, but I actually think the algorithms have changed, and with some of the,
mm-hmm.
the iOS updates that don't allow tracking as well, I think actually generalism is kind of like that's how the targeting works now. It's much more general.
Well, listen, we're referencing on this. We're referencing Dan Kennedy, and I don't ever consider Dan Kennedy a guy that was a super hyper niche person. I mean,
No.
like he did stuff on everything, info marketing, all sorts of things.
Yeah, he's written space ed copy. He's written all kinds of copy. I mean, he's a copywriter.
Yeah,
but he's written for all kinds of niches.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We know him. A lot of people that might listen to this call know him because he talks a lot to direct response marketers.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually wrote for all kinds of people.
Right.
Like if you really look at his portfolio of stuff, like this was almost a side business for all his other stuff that he's done.
Yep.
Which is why he always has examples and everything else, because he's out there doing stuff. Mm-hmm. So his niche quote was his direct response, which is pretty wide.
Yep. Absolutely.
He doesn't do a niche within a niche within a niche. Like that's
no.
So anyway,
that can get very tiring too, going down that road.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. In fact, you may need a drink to talk about that. So what do you
probably do?
What are you having over there?
Well, speaking of having a drink, having a strong drink.
All right.
I don't have a beer today, so I didn't have time to grab one, but I do have a little whiskey.
Okay.
From Bullet Bourbon. Pull up their
oh, that's a good Texas brand right there.
Actually, I think it's Kentucky.
I thought it was Texas. I thought Bullet was from Texas.
It says
we'll see.
It says Frontier Whiskey. Oh. It sounds like it would be from Texas, but it says Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Let's see. Do you see that? Am I on the screen here?
I'm sharing.
Oh, there we go.
Come on, share. Be nice. Share.
There we go. Yeah. Distilled and aged in the Bullet. It's not, I don't know if they Bullet family tradition. Bullet. So it's not Bullet. It's Bullet. Is that how you pronounce it, Sean?
It's called it Bullet.
It is made from pure Kentucky limestone filtered water in the Bullet family tradition.
That's just going to keep stumping you, isn't it?
Ain't how you spell bullet.
That ain't it. That ain't right.
Bullet Bourbon Awards, San Francisco. Man, I mean, it's pretty. This is my first time having it. So
I see it a lot. Maybe it's just I had it here the first time, so I kind of associate it with Texas.
Inspired by the whiskey pioneered from the old family recipe 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Only ingredients of the very highest quality are used, of course.
If I remember, because I think I've had this, I think it's very smoky. So it'll be interesting to see what you think about it. I remember it being very smoky when I've had this before.
Okay.
So
it says it has a light toffee flavor too. Yeah. A little bit, maple, oak, nutmeg.
My palate is not that sensitive when I drink straight bourbon. Like I just don't. I can taste like the smoke or not, but like get into the like toffees and caramels and stuff. Like
yeah,
it's hard for me to taste it. So.
And I even let's see. Of course, I prefer it. Some people like it's neat.
Yes.
I prefer it with a little ice, a little rock there.
Yeah.
So
is that a hailstone from the coming storms?
If I wait long enough, I might be able to pick one up.
Yeah, you just use hailstones for your drink.
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm having I don't know if I've had this one before. I've definitely had the brand. This is a local brand. They're about 5 miles down the road. Okay. Infamous Brewing. All right. I don't have a website pulled up, but it's Infamous Brewing. And this is a tiramisu coffee stout. A gift from the gods.
Wow.
It's about
tiramisu.
Yeah, it's about 8% ABV. Mm-hmm. It says, enjoy hints of chocolate and vanilla in this low acidity blend by Camacho All-American Stout with Invader Coffee, tiramisu flavored coffee beans. So this is it's one of those combo deals from the Invader Coffee.
Okay.
Because these guys are like 200 yards apart, not too far from here. So they do a lot of blends together. Mm-hmm. So this is Infamous Brewing with Invader Coffee. And Invader Coffee is a veteran-owned coffee brand. If you're looking for a new coffee, they have really, really good coffee. All right.
Good combo.
Cheers it up?
Yes, we should. All right, cheers.
Is it smoky or not?
I don't think it's that smoky. I don't notice a smoky flavor.
Okay.
Of course, I don't notice anything that it says. It says nutmeg and oatmeal, and I don't notice any of that stuff.
Just feel the burn, huh? That's it.
That's right. That's right. Maple, oak. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't notice any of that.
Yeah, I don't know who these people are that think they taste like that stuff.
But it's good. It's pretty smooth. So, I wish I was more of a bourbon connoisseur, but I'm honestly not. I mean, I like to sip it with, in the evening. I like to have a glass, but our buddy David is having a bourbon tasting here in a few weeks at his place.
Oh, cool. You going?
Well, it's on a Saturday. I don't know if I'll be able to make it because it's on a Saturday, but I don't know. I mean, I've tasted so many, and I don't know if I have the palate to distinguish.
That's not.
They all taste very similar to me. Four Roses, Elijah Craig pretty much taste very similar.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I do taste. I mean, I've had Four Roses. I definitely tasted a little floral when I like. Definitely a little more floral than smoky, and like it has to be a pretty big difference to me.
Yeah.
But like I definitely don't get into the toffees and oaks and oatmeals and that kind of stuff. Like,
right.
I don't really get that. So, all right. Well, what do you rate that? Is that the first time having it?
This is the first time.
Okay.
So my go-to is typically a Elijah Craig or a Four Roses. So it's very similar. I'm going to give it a solid 4.2. 4.2. It's good.
Cool.
Smooth.
All right, I'll give mine. I'm not sure what I'm tasting exactly. Definitely got some coffee in it. Coffee comes through pretty nicely. I do taste that. I don't know if I can't remember the last time I've had tiramisu, so I don't know how close to tiramisu it is because it's been a long time. So I'm gonna give it a 4. It's solid. It's good. But if I had like 4 or 5 different beers, I don't know if this would be the first one I'd pick out of the fridge. But
I had a tiramisu a few weeks ago. I was down in Florence. Let's see. Yeah, it was Florence, Alabama. There's a restaurant down in Florence, Alabama. It's called Georgia's Steakhouse, and they advertise the best steaks in the South. Okay.
Wow.
They're good. But I had the tiramisu there for dessert, and it was very good. So
yeah, well, that's interesting. Good marketing, right? I guess they got you.
Yeah. That's what attracted me in the first place.
See, and that's like some people would say, well, that's not good copy. It's too general. It's too vague.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a pretty bold promise. Like if
you're
going to go with like specific or bold, I think sometimes bold works. There's a lot of curiosity in that too, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course. You want to find out. I mean,
best steak. And we've talked about hyperbole before, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, maybe it's not quite the best, but if it's even kind of the best, it's got to be pretty good. So I'm going to give it
absolutely.
A shot. So, that's why those things work.
You just want to know, is it, it's kind of like talking past the sale, what we talked about before. So you've already got me at, now we're just arguing. You already got me at steak. It's a good steak, but is it the best steak? So I'm already having that conversation.
Yep. In your head. Yep. So, all right, well, let's jump into these persuasion and the balance of power, authority, those kind of things.
Yes. Indeed.
And look at that. Our buddy Chris found us even at an earlier time. So he must not be doing spin classes right
now. So before we jump into a topic, I do want to mention one of our guests, and I've mentioned this before, Kevin Donlin. He was a guest on a few months ago. Great copywriter. But I get I'm on his mailing list now, and it's cool because he sends, he talked about the sending out the paper email when he was on our show in the past, and I actually stole this from him, almost not word for word, but I stole the whole format of his email. But he sent this to me. I got this last month, and he titles this the paper email. Okay. So this is an attention getter. And it, at the very top, it says, Jonathan, why did I send you a paper email? Because you and I both hate cold emails. Isn't that the case? Right. And then he gets right into this. Here's what this is about. And then he gets into his topic. So, which in his case is about, marketing and, why he's, he used that to talk about his, his copywriting and all of that. But I used that very first part, those 2 sentences at the beginning, and I stole this almost word for word, and I sent this to some of my clients, and it actually does get attention. People, people don't, it's not expected, especially when it says in red at the very top, paper email.
Yeah. Like what?
So it does. It's kind of that, it breaks that, it's like a pattern interrupter.
So did you do the red when you sent it too?
Yeah, I did. I did the red. Absolutely.
Very good.
Like I said, I copied it word for word.
That's a little bit like, I could see the red too. Is like, it's almost like a last notice stamp at the top,
It is. And I used the exact same font, red lettering, and, pretty much the same format. Except I tailored it obviously to my customer base. And
so if you're going to copy from somebody's test, you might as well copy exactly, right?
Yep.
I mean, otherwise you're screwing up your chances.
That's right.
So that's cool. Yeah. So you've had pretty good luck with that. You've had people reach out.
Yeah. It's, it gets their attention. It's to me, it's good. In my business, it's always good to send these and then follow it up with a phone call. And they're like,
Right.
oh, that was pretty, that's pretty clever. I've never gotten, and typically the response that I'll get is, I've never gotten something like
so
that.
when you make that phone call, do you do I remember this from like the lumpy mail guys, can't remember their name, but they gave a script that's like, you call and say, hey, I'm Jonathan. I'm the guy that sent you the paper email. Is that how you start?
Yep. Yeah. Especially if I get sometimes I'll get a voicemail. And so then I'll leave that. You probably got I'm the guy that sent you the paper email, which most people are like, paper email. Yeah. That's a unique way to put that.
That's all you're trying to do is get through the clutter. So
that's right. And it really is just a letter, but you're kind of like positioning it differently, right?
Right, because everybody else calls and says, I sent you a brochure or sent you some information. Exactly. And they're like, don't know who you are. Like I get 15 pieces of information a day in my mailbox,
Right.
So
and what you're doing when you say that, I love the line, and I stole that because we both hate cold emails. Mm-hmm. And that's really a good message if you're selling, because they do hate. I mean, they hate people like your target market, especially if they don't know you well. They really do hate getting unsolicited emails.
Yeah, and it's instant rapport because they know that they hate that.
It's empathy, right?
Yeah, and it's just that's cool. So
you're
very cool to see
understanding their headaches. Like, listen, I don't have time for this. I understand you don't have time for that. That's why I'm sending you a paper email, cutting through the clutter. So speaking of cutting through the clutter, I've got another thing that I'm going to share. And this kind of ties into our topic of power, that we're going to be talking about power and persuasion and positioning. Okay. So there's a company that I discovered, Sean. It's a company called, have you ever heard of Murdy Creative Company?
That's a new one. I have not.
Okay. So they do these really cool. So I'm notorious. In the past, I've always used these send out presentation binders, and these are only to typically high qualified prospects that I have. So obviously they have to meet a threshold that, this is typically $100,000 sale plus client. And, I have to move to at least to a phase of the process to where, we're talking. I mean, this is typically not just a cold presentation that I'm sending out. This is a warm presentation, and it's got to be to a qualified client. So I'm going to share this.
Okay.
Share the screen here. This is a company. Again, the company is called Murdy Creative, and I stumbled across them from Facebook. I got an ad for them, but they do these things. They're refillable binders. And so I do a lot of presentations, and in the past I did a lot of these through just, FedEx office, where they would bind them, and really nice, heavy stock paper. And they would put the clear cover or the cloud, the frosty cover on the front. So, and the little spiral binding and all that, which is great and everything. But really, I found this. I mean, these are high end. These are about $100.
These are nice. Yeah.
But these are quality leather. And here's the cool thing: you can actually put your logo on these and send these out. So if you have a company logo, or you have your own logo, you can add this to these little slim cut. You can create the size you want, the dimensions you want of these leather binders. And it really depends on how much, how thick they're going to be, how many pages are going to be in this.
Yeah.
And typically what I'm sending out is usually about 20 to 30 pages, So I usually get the slim, more of the slim cut, from for about, I think it's like 30 to 40 pages that it holds. But you get these leather, you get these leather binders in, they'll engrave. I'm going to show you an example here. I just love these, man. These are so
And this is Murdy Creative, MURDY.
Yeah, Murdy Creative.
Creative.com. Or
And so
.co,
I get,
excuse me,
I get,
.co.
Yeah, get .co. So I get the creative in, the company. I have the logo created.
Hold on. Hold that up. I'm going to remove your screen. Okay, there you
go.
can see it.
Yep.
Oh, that's nice. That's looks like a really nice journal.
Yes.
Like,
and what they advertise is these things last for 150 years. You know, it's like,
wow.
It's crazy.
How do they know that?
And they send you a warrant, 120-year warranty. They send the card in with a 120-year warranty.
Wow.
With the card, and I get they send this out with a little personalized to me.
Okay.
And
so do you get them sent to you first and then you send them out?
Yeah, exactly. Because I usually have them printed up and then sent out to the client.
Okay.
And it comes with a note from the artist. It says, building this company has been a dream of mine for many years. It's all written in almost a handwriting type font.
Very cool.
Building this company has been a dream of mine for many years. There's a rich history of quality American craftsmanship, especially in the field of leather working. For me, there's an intense pride in what we make. I've always believed that the best and most sustainable designs are the ones that are built to last a lifetime. Our products don't rely on stitching or glue. Instead, we use non-corroding steel hardware and our signature tab locking seam to ensure there is nothing to fall apart or break. So blah, blah, blah. Pretty cool message. And then they put the on the back, the warranty, the 120-year warranty. It says, we believe the finest products should be built to last and that the people who make them should stand by their work. So they give the warranty, and then also a little thing on how to maintain the leather. Like maintaining our leather is designed to last for decades. From time to time, our classic colors, and they have different colors. They have the espresso, the chestnut, the slate.
Yeah.
So you can go with, I always go with the lighter, because the lighter color of leather, because I feel like the logo stands out more if you're having those engraved.
Oh yeah.
And but it's a way to kind of distinguish yourself a little. And so
and what did you put on yours? Can I see the cover?
Yeah, it's a company logo, and the company that I represent.
Okay.
And I put the and it's nicely done too. And these things, I've seen some of these over time as they wear, they look better with time.
I tell you, this would be really cool for people that do high ticket programs.
Yeah.
Where if they would send like a welcome pack and this was part of it.
Yep.
Let's say you sell a $5,000 course,
yep.
and you send them this with like some basic stuff in it. I don't whatever your material you might want to put in it,
right.
Journal. I mean, you could just do journal pages.
Absolutely.
But put your logo and the name of the course, on the binder, like that would be really cool. And take it to the, because, we've talked about like just when people have something in their hands like that, man, they're going to remember it and remember where they got it.
And they're not going to throw it away. I mean, this is like,
that's what's cool about this
leather.
Yeah.
And you can put your message on it. I mean, there's opportunities. You can engrave your message just near the bottom. I mean, there's a lot of tailored options on here when you get to the site where you can put your logo where you want it to appear, how you want to, present that. But something like that, I always said, you write a book, no one's going to throw away a book. Well, that's not necessarily the case anymore. Books are not what they used to be, but if you can create something that, on top of that provides really good information, but also has an attractive look to it,
Yep.
It's not going in the garbage. Trust me.
Yeah. And they have a lot of, looking at their site, they have a lot of pre-done designs.
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm.
If you want something a little more generic that, like sometimes sometimes I like getting something from a company that doesn't have their logo.
Right.
And I still remember that that's where I got it typically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so yeah, they've got like American flags. They've got like Tesla diagram, blueprints. They've got some other cool stuff. I mean, you could get one probably just printed with like journal, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's what a lot of people use them for, is just, if they want to put their notebook paper in there and use it as a journal.
Yep.
They've got the little eyelet tabs, to keep that bound in there.
Yeah. That's very cool.
But if you want to really capture attention, this is something to send out to these top, your top customers. I mean, you can spend $100 or more plus the FedEx shipping. You're going to spend quite a bit. So you want it to, go to the right people.
You should put your paper email in there, but change it to leather email.
Nice. I love that. Yep.
It's in the whole thing.
Yep.
But yeah, of course, like you said, you want to make sure that the people you're sending this to, because you're in for $150 by the time you pay for everything. So it needs to be somebody who's probably further down, unless you're just trying to really get somebody's attention,
right?
Like a top 100 dream 100 type list. If you're willing to invest $150, and you think about it, it's really not that much. Like, what are the chances of you finding an ideal client through Facebook ads in the first $150 you spend?
Sure. Yeah.
It's pretty, it's almost not going to non-existent, right? So
right.
if you have a list where you can identify your top 100 prospects, this would, this is where you could just divert that ad spend to that. And then, it's lots of ways you could use that for sure. But I could certainly see too why you'd want to make sure they're at least a step or two into the prospect process.
Yeah, they definitely don't get this at the beginning. I mean, this is after, we've
a couple conversations,
we've talked, and we're almost at the proposal. I mean, this is at the proposal side of things when I'm trying to win based on.
That makes sense.
After we've already had conversations and we've already worked out a lot of the details in terms of, is this the right fit?
Yeah.
Then it's time for the proposal. And that's when this comes. So I
don't
want my proposal to look like anybody else's. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. These would make great birthday gifts too.
Yeah.
Christmas,
no
birthday.
doubt. Yeah. So, yeah. They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Nice. All right. So let's, now we're ready for the.
Yeah. I'm going to show our other screen here. Stop this one. So today we're going to be talking about power. Here we go here. The balance of power, authority, celebrity, and exclusivity.
Okay.
So we've talked about this, and Sean and I, we get in these conversations, and like we said earlier, sometimes, we have a tendency to get into a special, we can talk about authorities and we can talk about specialists. My thought is, if you're an authority, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a specialist. I mean, for example, I wouldn't consider, someone with the likes of, Dr. Phil or, some of the people that are known celebrities out there. He's probably dated. I'm using a dated guy.
Yeah.
Who's a more recent celebrity?
I don't know. Let's say Dr. Oz is a little more recent. I don't know if he's still around. I think he's trying to get in politics now. So
right. Dr. Oz, Joe Rogan, I wouldn't consider him an authority, but because he's associated with so many people, I think that, as a media personality, that distinguishes him somewhat as an authority, but he's definitely not a specialist because he talks to people of all genres, right?
Yeah. I mean, and he's not even a specialist as a podcaster because he still tours and does comedy.
Absolutely.
He's a commentator for UFC. Right. Like, I mean, that's his 3 big things. I'm sure he's got other stuff going on, but
Absolutely.
those are pretty 3 random things,
Mm-hmm.
really, if you think about it. Podcast host,
Mm-hmm.
UFC commentator,
Yeah.
and comedian are all
Right.
pretty different.
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, they're all talking,
Mm-hmm.
so there is a commonality.
Right.
They're all talking to groups of people and crowds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you wouldn't consider him. And obviously, he's a specialist as a comedian.
Right.
Even then, I don't know how good he is. I've actually never seen him do stand up, so I don't like. I've never even watched a video of Joe Rogan doing stand up.
I haven't either.
Like
I've only seen him in like, fighting, doing commentary on fighting, MMA stuff. And then,
I mean, he must just be okay at stand up because like,
right.
You haven't seen a lot of like Netflix specials and things like that, starring Joe Rogan.
Right.
So I don't know how good he is. I haven't watched enough to know, but sorry for any Joe Rogan comedy lovers out there, but I just don't know. I do listen to the podcast and I like listening to him on the UFC fights. So
sure. Yeah. So we have here a pyramid or a triangle of influence.
This looks like one of them
is
pyramid
at the bottom,
schemes.
Sean.
Yeah.
The generalist is all the way at the bottom. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's the foundation.
There you go. I knew it.
I'm a copywriter. I can find an angle.
There you
Don't
go.
worry. Don't you worry about that. No, I think it's a good foundation. Like I think it's
absolutely.
We've had this argument, but discussion before. I've had this argument with people in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Ferriss has got a thing on his blog where he thinks generalists are more important than specialists.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They can have more empathy. They have more insight. They have more understanding of kind of the big picture and how things work.
Yeah.
It's like people who make jokes about engineers, that they know
they're
everything about one little thing.
Absolutely.
That's the extreme version of the specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's too far specialized. It's like anything else. This is a pendulum, right? It's like, you can be too general and know a little tiny bit about all kinds of stuff. And you're kind of a trivia person.
Right.
And then the other side is like, everything in the world about, how to make a mechanical bolt,
Absolutely.
The different types of steel and all the thread size and thread spirals and like a mechanical engineer would know.
Mm-hmm.
But like you try to talk about that at a party, a generalist is going to have more fun at a party.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Well, I had this conversation with my kids the other night about, typecast and when it comes to celebrities in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Think about the guys that have been typecast over the years and couldn't break out of that. Right.
Yep.
And then I think about someone like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Who has never gotten into, he stayed away from the, he stayed away from a lot of the Marvel genre type movies, probably for, I don't know. And I don't know if that's going to hurt your career chances or what, but he's always made himself available or put himself in a position to take on numerous roles in different genres, like from Top Gun pilot to, pool player to, and people think that he's always in these like badass movies, but I can name a ton of movies that he was in that he's done an incredible acting job where he's been, he wasn't like some badass superhero or badass.
The Firm comes to mind.
Yeah. The Firm. I'm trying to think of the one about the Vietnam guy that came back, Born on the 4th of July. I think
I forgot about that one.
Rain Man. He played a,
selfish stepbrother, whatever he was.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's done some good stuff for sure. And then you look at like the opposite version. You look at some of these guys that, what's his name? He's like, there's a whole group of them that like, they always play like a military, brass, or they always play like a senator. that kind of thing.
Right.
They're always the same character in every movie they play in. Typically, they're
Right.
more supporting cast, not a main character. But
Yeah.
even like Matt Damon, he's played a lot of different roles.
Absolutely.
But then when he did go to the Bourne, like he kind of became Jason Bourne after that.
Right.
But
Exactly.
I think his best work was probably Good Will Hunting.
Yep. Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
Peaked early.
Yep. Absolutely. He and Affleck. That was a great movie.
Yeah. Although he did The Revenant, that was good. I like that. But
yeah,
you got to like those kind of movies to like that.
Absolutely.
So generalist, specialist
is
on this chart higher.
Authority
again,
figure.
though, but it's just specialist. It doesn't say, this is the conversation we were having before the show. It's like, how specialized is the question? Like, how specialized do you need to get to be a quote specialist?
Right.
Do you really need to be a pediatric neurosurgeon to be a specialist? Obviously, yeah, that's and that's that's like the go-to example for people who like to say generalist or no good is they go straight to like surgeon of some kind.
Right.
Well, a pediatric neurosurgeon is going to make more than a neurosurgeon. They're going to make more than a general practitioner. Yeah. True. But that's not always true.
Right.
That's an easy example.
Yep.
So what's the next level then? If it's
the authority figure celebrity specialist, that's at the very top.
Okay.
So that's the person that is not only specializes, but is well known in their specialization as an authority figure. So they're working with.
So are we saying on this chart? I know you didn't make this chart, but do we not think that there are any authority figure celebrity generalist?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking earlier about Joe Rogan. I think I think Oprah. I mean, a lot of these people that use the. I think we touched on this last week. Brendan Burchard said, there's a couple types of experts in the world. You can interview other experts and be an expert interviewer.
Right.
Which a lot of podcast hosts, that's what they do, right?
Exactly.
I think of Lewis Howes, I wouldn't consider him a specialist in anything other than, I guess he played handball in the Olympics, which nobody's ever seen in real life.
Right.
But other than that, I wouldn't even say that's niche to like personal development because he goes all over the map with that podcast. School of Greatness. Yeah. That's pretty vague.
Yeah. That's right.
And he's done pretty well for himself with that. So yeah, it's interesting that he only graduated up specialists. I think you could have two pyramids side by side that say one is a specialist pyramid, one's a generalist pyramid.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Right. Well, I think if you get too locked in, you're going to eventually have to expand, right? I mean, I think you can, I don't care what people say is like.
We also have to take personality to type, right? Somebody who's going to be happy being a pediatric neurosurgeon for 30 years. Some people that would be just absolute boredom, right? Yeah. No matter how big the stakes are, no matter how much the pay is, going into the same place every day and doing the same basic thing would kill some people. So I think you also have to take that into account. Like, what's your personality? Like, how are you? What's going to make you happy? Because if you're not happy doing what you're doing, you'll never get great at it.
Right.
You got to have some level of enjoyment about what you do. Whether it's sales or copywriting or coaching or whatever it is, like you need to enjoy it at least a little bit. And a specialist won't help you with that.
Right.
Any more than a generalist will if you don't at least enjoy it. So you definitely, I think, have to take your own personality, your own, what makes you happy type, ideas into account too.
Right.
But I could absolutely see a celebrity generalist. I could absolutely see an authority figure generalist. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I think the real lesson here is not general specialist, but stacking the authority, stacking the
Mhm.
celebrity.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where you wanted to go anyway.
Yeah.
Is like, how do you build authority and how do you then add on celebrity status?
Yeah.
Whether you're a specialist or a generalist, how do you do that? I bet you're going to tell us, aren't you, Jonathan?
Well, and here's the thing. We've talked about this before, is like, you don't have to lock yourself in. You just have to tailor your message that goes out to
Right.
this niche, or this niche. It's like my friend I've got a friend who's an attorney, and we were having a beer a couple of weeks ago, and we were catching up. He's an old high school buddy of mine. He's back in town, and so we were having a beer one Saturday, and he's struggling. I mean, he's an attorney. Trust me, not all attorneys are doing super well out there. They're not making buku money. And he hates what he does. Honestly, he does a lot of basically elder or not. It's like real estate stuff. I mean, or not estate stuff, not estate stuff. Yeah. Which I think he's miserable doing that. And he was lamenting the fact that he's stuck in this, but he doesn't want to, he wants to, he doesn't, it's not that he hates law. It's that he's ultimately wants to get into celebrity law, and he wants to move over to Nashville and work with celebrities. And I'm like, well, I think that it doesn't require you to go get retrained or anything like that.
Yeah,
You
he doesn't need
to,
a new law degree. He just needs to
exactly. You just have to
reposition
reposition yourself, reposition your message,
Mhm.
and start learning some marketing and tailor that message to, celebrities. And,
really,
he has
it's
some
as simple as just like saying I'm the celebrity attorney.
Exactly. Yeah.
And before anybody else does.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, name it, claim it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
amen, brother.
That's how it goes. Best steak in the South. Best. I mean, what were we saying earlier? The steakhouse that I went to. Why did I go there? Because they said
they had the audacity to say we're the best steaks in the South.
That's right.
And you're like, well, it may not be true, but I'm going to test. I'm going to see. Because if they're right, then this is the place I want to go. If they're not, hey, I wait. It's one meal. I'll go find a better steak somewhere else later.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of this positioning works. It's like, okay, you want to be the celebrity attorney, the attorney for celebrities,
right?
They're going to at least start there, right?
Absolutely,
if they can afford it and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
right.
How do you do that?
Well, how do you get it? How do you get authority? Authority is not being questioned.
Okay.
So when you view someone as an authority figure, you view them as the expert. They're much more knowledgeable than others, recognizable than others as the expert, symbols of being an expert. I shared with him my attorney friend, so we were just talking about, we were having conversation at the bar, and he's like, how did you become the expert or the podcaster for the composites industry? And I was like, well, I just started one. That's really all I did, was I started one 6 years ago. And, I started just doing it on a regular basis, and people recognized me. And then I started building sponsorships off of our, trade associations. They're like, oh, you do this. And they didn't ask me questions like, what's your qualification? I didn't have any qualification. I didn't even have background in composites engineering, but I started this podcast, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
So sometimes you have to create the perception. How do you create the perception? Well, sometimes the easy way to do that is to start creating content around that, right?
Yeah.
Something that you're either, like we said earlier, you're either interviewing people on a regular basis who are in that particular field, which I do, and I've done for a regular basis, on a regular basis for the last 6 years.
Yep.
So that perceives me, because I'm associated with those experts, that makes me the perceived expert in their mind.
Right. It's kind of the law of proximity, right? People assume that if you can get in proximity, that you can interview these people, that you must have some kind of clout that they don't,
That's right.
because they've never
Exactly.
met these people. They've never
Yep.
met the CEO of XYZ Corporation,
Right.
and they're in the industry. They've been in the industry for 25 years, and they've never met the guy.
Absolutely.
And here the guy is on your podcast,
Right.
right? So it's like, oh, this guy must have come to him. Like, there's so much in there's so many assumptions people make
Hmm.
because of biases and mental biases and all these things that you might as well take advantage of them. Like, they
Right.
don't harm anybody, and people are already having these biases.
Hmm.
So I love this, that it's the first line in expert is much more knowledgeable about X than others.
Yeah.
And I remember, it was popular probably 10 or 12 years ago, Jonathan, that people would say, if you just read 3 to 5 books on your subject, you'll know more than 95% of the people in the world
That's
about
it.
about that
That's
subject.
it. Absolutely.
Or interview
all it
3 to
takes.
5 experts.
Right.
If I really wanted to know about and be seen as an expert in quantum physics, I just got to go find the top 5 guys in quantum physics and interview them,
And
and
talk
then
to them. Yep.
and then start talking about it, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Because I would in talking to those 5 guys or women over an hour and a half or so each,
Hmm.
I would probably hear all the terminology, the 20% of the terminology that makes 80% of the difference.
Right.
Tim Ferriss has talked about this for a decade now. It's like, you really only need to know 20% of any given industry
Yep.
to know what to do what 80% of that industry does.
Absolutely.
Because there's only really 20% that really, really matters in that industry. The rest gets too nuanced or doesn't matter or whatever.
Sure.
So long as you know the basics of quantum physics,
Hmm.
you could have a pretty good conversation until you go, work at MIT or something and go to the lunchroom at MIT or something. Then you're going to be out of your element. But
Sure.
for the common person, you could definitely be an expert, because you just have to know more. I love how this says this: more knowledgeable about X than others. Not everyone.
Not every. Yeah, exactly.
Just more than others.
Right.
Which is pretty broad. So
which is much of your audience. A lot of times, I always say, on my when I do podcasts, I'm the least knowledgeable person on my podcast. Yeah. Like when I'm interviewing people.
Yeah.
Which is the case for, anybody out there that's, that's Joe Rogan, because he's out there interviewing people, but especially in my industry, I'll be interviewing
a lot of the guys in your industry. They've been in there for 20, 25, 30 years, right?
Yeah. And they have PhDs and they're working in, laboratories or, facilities that are developing technologies. And, I'm asking questions. Like, I just need to ask questions that, and there's some background. I mean, there's some prep work involved in asking those questions.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you don't have to be the authority of knowledge. You just have to ask the right questions and be able to pull that out of them so that they'll, know how to share that with your audience.
Yep.
But it's amazing. Like, honestly, I'm amazed at how this works, just in my own business and over the years, creating a podcast out of nothing, just by saying, years ago, I said, is there a podcast in this industry? No. Well, I'm going to create one. I had the audacity to create a podcast when I didn't have, all the credentials. I created the podcast and I started interviewing people. They came on because obviously I have a podcast, right? I've created a podcast. So I've done something they didn't do. They want to be on the show. And nowadays I get, regular requests from, interview, companies out there, not just companies, but also associations that want to be on the show on a regular basis, calling, hey, just want to give you an announcement that we're, opening a new facility, or that we're have a new manufacturing plant that's starting up, or blah, 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 or, we want to come on your show and talk about the new, this trade show that's coming up next month or in the next couple of months and stuff like that. It's crazy how that works, So authority it's like it says, not being questioned. Once you go out there and do it, like, people don't question, like, are you qualified? Are you qualified to own this podcast? You just own it. You're associated with it. So they don't even say that. So
I mean, I'm amazed. Like, when I first started selling, like back in 2000, I was selling financial products and I knew nothing about them, right? I mean, you can get a license to sell financial products pretty easily, just like real estate or anything else, right? You can, or a, physical trainer certification or whatever. Like, if you just pass the test, that just barely scratches the surface of what you need to know in that niche. But I would show up at people's houses and I'd be I knew more than they did about the products, just a little tiny bit more.
Sure.
And let's go through some of the other things on this list. So, symbols of being an expert. I would wear a suit because in the financial world, that's and the market I was going after, like, people expected you to be in a suit and tie, right? Because if you're managing money or talking about money, that's the way it was, especially back then.
Sure.
Not as much today. And then looks like an authority figure. I mean, uniforms. A suit is a type of uniform.
Yep. Absolutely.
If I'm a plumber and I want to be an authoritative looking plumber, I probably would not wear a 3-piece suit, right? When I showed up to unplug somebody's toilet, I would have a tool belt on.
Absolutely.
I would show up in a shirt with my name on it, probably, or in a van that's labeled. That's all part of the uniform, the props around you. For you and the podcast thing, the podcast platform itself is kind of like a uniform. Like it says so much about. I mean, a podcast just implies this guy's an expert about something, right? Because most people don't even know how to get a podcast started and all the stuff that goes into it. So they just assume it's much, much harder. It's like publishing a book. That looks hard. It's really not, but it looks hard. And so people automatically assign authority to it if you go through the process.
Well, it's funny though. You talk about the presentation, the uniforms. Whenever I get invited to, by trade associations to come to their shows, their big events, I have like 3 or 4 polos with the logo Composites Weekly on there. And then I'll have like a big banner to put on a table, that's got the logo and everything, so that when I'm sitting at a table or a trade show booth or something like that, it's got the logo hanging down. I'm wearing the logo. So you want to present that. You want to present that. I don't usually do that when I'm just at home out of the, this location, out of the office interviewing people. I rarely wear that stuff. But if I'm on location, man, I am looking the authoritative type, with that uniform on. For sure.
Back when I had a handyman business, same thing. Like, when I started it, I went to one of the print companies and I got like 5 polos printed up with a simple logo.
That's right.
That I made on Fiverr. Actually, back then I think it was like Logo Nerds or something, where you can make your own logo. Uploaded that to the shirt company, wore some khakis, got a tool belt, and started doing handyman work. I had no experience. I mean, I had a little bit of experience because I'd done some construction, but probably not nearly as much as a lot of other people. But then I showed up. I was clean cut, didn't smoke, didn't smell like alcohol.
Right.
Showed up on time, and I got all the business I wanted.
Absolutely.
I think one thing here is, it says there's 3 things about authority: expert, powerful, and authoritative. We talked about expert and authoritative. Let's talk about powerful first.
Powerful. Yes.
Someone who can say yes or no.
Yeah. You can walk away from it, right?
Yeah. Or you can make a decision one way or the other, like in the process, right? What we hate when we talk to, a customer service rep and they can't make a decision, right? They're just like,
sure. Yeah.
Well, I need to talk. That's why everybody's like, let me talk to your supervisor. Because, you want to go up the chain of authority.
Mm-hmm.
to the next level because you know that that's the person that can make decisions. So if you can make a yes or no decision,
Right.
it automatically makes you look like an authority, because you have that power to make the decision.
Yep.
And this one's good too. And someone who's not easily or readily accessible.
Man, that's difficult for a lot of people sometimes because
Yeah, especially in
if you want the
today's,
business,
yeah,
but I
it's
know
scary. It's
Dan
scary to,
Kennedy,
yeah.
being not easily available. And I put this into practice. My buddy, or our friend David, is always talks about me using the takeaway selling approach where I intentionally don't call people back for a while. Even I try not to call people back, even if it's, a potential client of mine or a customer of mine that reaches out and asks for something or wants to do business.
Yeah, you don't jump.
Sometimes, I don't jump and I try to pause and put them off a little bit. So I don't try to like be eager to do business with them. Right.
Is that how you got your wife?
Actually, she laughs at me a lot of times because I had that approach, not intentionally, but I was just terrible on the phone when we talked. And like when we were dating, I used to like just have like really brief conversations with her and say, I'll let you go and I'll talk to you later. That was before the cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to set that, kind of set those boundaries. And also what you're doing is you're setting expectations.
Yes.
There's nothing worse when you start a brand new relationship with someone, whether it's business or pleasure or whatever. If your first response is immediate whenever they ask for something, you just set an expectation that that's how this is going to be from now on.
Absolutely.
Whether it's conscious or subconscious. So if you then delay the next time, you just look like you're either spacing or you're just like, whatever. It's like so yeah, I think that's really important you don't have to be like completely, you can only contact me by fax exclusive. Like that's a little over the top. Right. Yep. But you can say, look, I don't respond to anyone within 24 hours. Give me at least 24 hours before I get back to you. I've got a lot going on.
That's right.
But I will get back to you, but it's going to be at least 24 hours. So,
and I learned this a long time ago from Dan Kennedy's No BS in Selling.
Yep.
And he called it takeaway selling, the takeaway selling, which is like, don't be overly anxious to reach back to people, because it appears that you're begging for the business. So
this comment from Runaway Train was really good. It's like, when I did home employments selling insurance, I asked for a glass of water. If the wife got it, the husband is the alpha. If the wife asked the husband to get it, she's the decision maker.
Absolutely. That's good.
That's a great little,
that's right.
I had when I used to sell in home, every once in a while we'd go out in teams, and there was this one guy that I went with, and he would just make himself at home. Like he was one of those guys that just like everybody loved, like he was everybody's grandkid because we worked in the like 65 plus market. He would literally get up from the kitchen table where we were doing our stuff, and he would just go to the fridge, get his own drink. Like he'd be like, anybody want anything? And they just,
that's great.
He just took the authority.
Right.
Like he didn't, there really wasn't like any authority that he had necessarily, but he just created authority by these like over the top actions that he would do.
Right.
And people just like, you could just watch over the course of an hour or three. They were like 3-hour appointments where people like, all of a sudden they were like, oh, this guy's in charge. Like you could just see the switch, even though they were in their own house, he had taken over everything. Like, I mean, he'd be like, because a lot of times we were out in the country and things like that. He'd be like, y'all got any pie? I'm hungry.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, and then, somebody be like, oh, yeah, let me get that for you. And just, I mean, it was absolutely incredible to watch him kind of work. And nobody was ever offended by it. Like, they were just amazed. And they were just, it's amazing how much authority he grabbed and created just by asking people to do things for him. And nothing like, it's not like, hey, sign this contract and become a customer. It was like
Right.
little things, like Runaway Train is talking about here, with like, ask for a glass of water,
Right.
and see who moves and who gets it for you, because that tells
That's
you a
right.
lot about the whole power dynamics at the table.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a great point. Runaway Train. That was it's good stuff.
Mhm.
Bringing me back to my kitchen table sales days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that I think there's a lot of things in the power play there that, being easily accessible
Mhm.
on a regular basis. We talked about, like, in the past, the perceived value and that comes with you know having limited, or I think it plays into the scarcity principle
Yeah, for sure.
with how easily available you are. So the less available you are, the more valuable you are. So
Right.
you got to think about that, and sometimes that's really hard to implement into your business unless you're intentional about it. Like, I mean, if you're eager to get business, sometimes you know the the response sometimes is like, I got to call this guy back, I need the business, or I want to, if this is a huge lead, you're
Mhm.
anxious. Sometimes that can, you actually want to do the opposite of that. You
Commission
want to
breath.
that's right. Exactly.
That's what we used to
Exactly.
call it in different companies I've worked with. They called it commission breath.
That's
Like,
right.
people,
That's right.
people smell it.
Yep.
Uh, and they're like, ooh, no, they back off, because you're too eager, too
Hmm.
accessible. Um, and people that are up to stuff are typically busy,
Right.
and
That's right.
they don't have to know what you're busy at. By the way,
Right. Exactly.
you're busy, maybe going to the gym, and you
That's
just
right.
can't talk right now. Right?
That's right.
It's like, hey, I'm going to a meeting. Be back in about
Hmm.
2 hours. If you want to talk, then I'll see if I can squeeze you in for a 5-minute call. But if it's going to be longer than 5 minutes, I need you to, here's a link to my calendar.
Yep.
Just little things like that. And it does require you to just take a breath, not be in scarcity mode where you think, oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm going to lose this client. I had a
Right.
coach one time who told me, you don't need any given client. You need clients.
Right.
Everybody does. Everybody
Sure.
needs clients and customers, but you don't need any given one.
Hmm.
Like, there's going to be another one come along. If you're doing your work and you're prospecting, you're doing the things, you're doing your marketing, another one will come along.
Sure.
So you don't have to just like jump and react to
Yeah.
one, because they're not the answer to your problems, right? And you're going to
Yep.
need another one after them. So it's like,
Well, think about the best restaurants that you go to.
mhm,
Going back to a restaurant
yeah,
example, they make you make a reservation. Like, you
yeah,
can't just show up, right? They're going
yeah.
to say, no, you want to
Or
do
the very
business, you got
least,
to.
even if they don't take a reservation, you're going to have to wait, right? You're going to have
That's
to,
right. That's right.
because if it's worth going to, it's probably got to wait.
Put your
And
name
heck,
on a list.
even
Right.
Waffle House has a wait, you know? Because when you want a Waffle House, you want a Waffle House.
Absolutely.
Like, there's
And
certain
those
times
booths
you
are
really,
filled up, man. Most of the
yeah,
time you go in a Waffle House, there is no booth available. You're going to wait.
yeah. And, when you need it, they're the experts at
That's
2
right.
a.m. dining. So
That's right.
they are the authority. And those waitresses, servers, whatever they're called these days in Waffle House, they don't take no junk either. They're like, what do you want, son?
What do you want? Yeah, exactly.
All right. What else you got on this authority subject?
uh well, I want to say, last thing I'll say to that is, sometimes the language that you use
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to this power, or powerful, I guess, is like,
Mm-hmm.
the language that you use in a conversation of not being easily or readily accessible is, we need to see if there's a good fit, or we don't work with everyone.
Yeah.
um you know Obviously, identifying yourself as not being easily available and accessible at all times, and
Yeah.
and making them understand that
Yeah. Like, I just finished a
that there's.
sales letter for a client, and
Mhm.
in the end, it's a pretty expensive service, financial newsletter service.
Mhm.
This was for one of their back end products, so it's like $4,000 a year. So it's not cheap,
Right.
right?
Right.
So when I was closing and doing the price and that kind of stuff, I was like, this isn't for everyone. Like we did a survey recently and we had, so many responses and 80% said it was too expensive. I
Yep.
said, so, and that may be you. And that's
Right.
in the letter. I was like, that may be you. And that if that's so, that's okay. Just stick with your current subscription and we'll be
Right.
happy to serve you. But if you're ready to step up and you're ready to do the, blah, 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 this is, this might be something you're interested in. So yeah.
Sure.
So part of that certainty, that language is being able to like be willing to say, look, yeah, we're expensive. We're not for everybody,
Absolutely.
or yeah, our lead time, because there's so much demand. Like if I was the leather journal company, I might throw in there, it takes 30 days for delivery.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, we know you could go to Amazon and get something in 2 days. But these are handcrafted and it takes us 30 days because of the amount of orders and the amount of time we put in these. If you can't wait, we understand. But if you want a quality product.
That's a great example, Sean. And I'll give you an example is I recently ordered from a company, a set of boots, they're really nice leather boots.
Yeah.
And the company said, this was, month or two ago, it said probably be 8 weeks. So it's like,
which is really ballsy in an Amazon world, right? To stick to that and be like, yeah, it's going to take 8 weeks. I know. Yeah, you can order something and get it in 2 days, but it ain't going to be these boots. And that,
but you know what?
That exudes confidence when they say that.
And the only reason I said okay was because of the fact that they were featured or they were talked about by celebrities, by guys like Joe Rogan who mentioned them. And he had a conversation. I can't remember the other celebrity that he was talking with there, about this company. And, cause you're always looking for like, I hate shopping. I hate going to the mall. I hate trying on stuff. I hate trying on shoes. Yeah. I despise shopping. So I just want to be able to order something, have it, come in. So ordering something's difficult. I mean, Amazon's great, but if you're ordering something to wear or shoes or stuff like that, it can become very difficult. So that's where you put your trust in authority figures out there. But you go to the
stuff like shoes. I mean, if you buy a really good pair of shoes, they can last 20 years,
Absolutely.
Like, so why not wait 8 weeks for something that could last 20 years? But it's on the shoe company or the boot companies to remind you of that. It's not, they have to remind you of that. You don't automatically know that. But
that's right.
But as soon as they say it and they give you a reason why it takes 8 weeks, look, we have thousands of orders ahead of you. We handcraft every one.
And that was a reason. Handcraft.
Yep.
Handcraft. We're made in the USA. We handcraft. Everything is handcrafted to your specs. We don't like pull off a shelf, which is another great thing. I mean, that's another great thing that you can always utilize is that we handcraft to your specifications. Like, and I tell this in my industry is like, listen, we custom make to your, I don't care if it's like chemicals or leather goods. You can use that to your advantage out there by saying, listen, we customize, we're a lean manufacturer. We customize to your specs. Okay. Yep. We're not just pulling crap off the shelf for you. We're going to customize it to your specific, specs. And we make it when we get the order. We don't just pull something off the shelf for you and send it out. We're not going to do that because, in chemical, when you're dealing with chemicals, everything has a shelf life. So, and that's what you have to communicate. You do understand everything has a shelf life. So if you're pulling something off the shelf, then there is a shelf life on that. And you're probably, by the time you get it, you're probably, 2 months into the shelf life, right? So you only have maybe 2 months left. So you want it to meet their specs.
So our buddy Chris said, we only use the baddest bulls for your feed. Ain't no normal cows in this process. The best for the best.
That's right.
You should sell that tagline, Chris.
Exactly. By the way, that pair of boots that I ordered for
Yeah.
is like, I think it's like a $400 pair of boots, but
Yeah.
you get what
Like I said,
obviously
I mean,
you pay
those will
higher
last.
for specific and for customization. And then for the fact that they just say you'll wait 8 weeks is intriguing to me.
Yeah, and those will last you 20 years. I mean, maybe you have to
Yeah.
resole them or something like that, but I mean, they'll last
Mm-hmm.
20 years. And if you think about the cost per year, it's pretty low, right?
Yeah,
Compared to if you
exactly.
just go through a pair of cheap boots from Target
That's right.
that break at the seams,
Right.
in a year or 2 years, like, yeah,
That's right.
it's not even close. So yeah, that's all good stuff. Like, just you can in any business, any profession,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a personal trainer, whatever, like if you can put a little distance, and make yourself a little bit more exclusive, it's going to up your value. It's like, yeah,
Absolutely.
um, hey, I'd love to do this project for you. I know I can do a good job, but it's going to be 8 weeks before I can start.
Mm-hmm.
And at first they'll be like, oh, I really wanted it sooner. It's like, well, I understand. You should have called me 8 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Right.
But and you could always offer like a rush charge if you really want to.
Oh, sure.
And
Companies do that all the time.
yeah,
Like, you want
and
it sooner? You're going to pay $8, $10, whatever.
yeah. So you can tell somebody, look, yeah, it's normally $10,000 for this package of
Yeah.
copy. But if you really, really need it, I can move some stuff around, and but it's going to be an extra 25%.
Right.
And then you'll find out real quick if it really needed to be done this week,
Mm-hmm.
or if they can wait 8 weeks.
Right.
And I think if you're going to do rush charges, they should be pretty steep, like 25 to 50% or more,
Oh, absolutely.
to see if
Yeah.
people are really serious about it, or if they just,
Mm-hmm.
just that's what people are used to now.
Yep.
The other thing is, you need to ask yourself, do I even want to offer rush charges? Because that,
Mm-hmm.
you can take the position, look, I don't do rush charges. Like,
Right.
I serve people in the order they come.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll do this project together. It'll be done in 8 weeks. If you want some more projects, maybe we should talk about that now, so you can go ahead and get those on the books. So you could turn that into 2 sales real quick if you wanted to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah. So what do you got pulled up on the screen here?
So here's one of my favorite ways to create authority.
Okay.
When you're in a commodity, even when you're in a commodity business, or maybe what you think is a commodity business.
Okay.
And most people don't do this, but it's the old shock and awe in a box.
Okay.
Right. So Dan talks about this, the authority in a box, preparing and conditioning the prospect. The last thing you ever want. So it's what they see before the sale. And I talked about this earlier, talking about the leather presentation binder, right?
Yeah.
Creating a package. And I'm not just sending the presentation binder. Typically I'm sending that, and I'm sending, some other things with it. There is a box of things that they get along with the presentation binder.
Yep.
I'll put in some trinkets, a Rubik's Cube. I'll put in a set like you've talked about in the past, which I picked up, like poker chips, dominoes, what have you, just as an example to go with a letter that says, so to speak, if you're talking about a Rubik's Cube, there's a billion ways. There's, I don't think, like 5 billion combinations to this Rubik's Cube, but there's only, so many examples. I've used that tagline many times over on the sales letters that I use.
When I first got into copywriting, I used a pair of dice.
Yep.
And I said, don't roll the dice on your next project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So little things like that, it sticks with people.
Right? Absolutely.
And I had a same kind of thing. I had like a really nice portfolio. I remember when I sent that to, this was back like 2008 when I first got into copyright. I actually sent that to the Agora company that I was looking to work with, Stansberry, before I got hired and before I was going to make the trip up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I got up there and I was interviewing with the head publisher, he had it in his hand. He's like, this is the best like resume packet we've ever gotten.
Wow.
Because it wasn't the leather. If I had that back then, I probably would have done that. But it was
Sure.
a really nice cover. The dice, like different things in it. So those things stand out. They work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know who else is doing this really well right now? And we've talked about some of these companies before. Athletic Greens.
Sure.
Another one right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Everyday
Fantastic.
Dose.
Yep.
Have you heard of Everyday Dose?
I haven't heard of them.
So they're like a mushroom coffee company.
Okay.
And the first time you order, they have basically a shock and awe box. And what it comes with is, 30-day supply of the stuff, a nice little cup, like a metal, it's not quite as nice as like a, wherever the brand is. I just went blank. Not Arctic. What's the brand? Like the big brand?
Yeti.
Yeti.
Yeah.
Yes, man, totally lost it. It's like a
They're
Yeti
not as
cup.
popular anymore, though. They're losing ground.
People are taking market share for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like a nice little Yeti cup, a frothing, thing that comes with it. So that was all in a really nice box that all comes together for your first. Some stickers that you get when you sign up, like it's a whole kit that you get, and that's what that is. It's a shock and awe box. It's like, oh wow, this got all the stuff I need to make my new mushroom coffee, and
I know
it
Kit.
works.
Yeah, I love it.
And you've talked about the Athletic Green stuff in the same way.
I love it. Yeah, they send it nice. The packaging is nice. The logo. They start you out with the box of the the monthly or the travel packets, and then the big bag, which we do both the big bag and the travel packets. But they send you the little storage container to put your Athletic Greens in, to keep it in the fridge, to seal it and refrigerate it. Yeah, I mean it's a nice, and it comes in a nice starter box. Now the starter box is different from the monthly box. Once they get you in, then the boxes are
pretty
less
plain. Yeah.
They're not as shock and awe, so to speak.
No.
I mean, they're less shock and awe.
Yeah, because they got
terrible.
you, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I still love it, and it's still a good product. So
cool.
But yeah, I love that, again, what we're telling people out there is, whatever you're doing, if you own a business, if you're just sending out your resume, don't, be shock and awe.
Yeah.
Send it in a leather binder, send it out there to a company out there, and do something different to separate yourself from everybody else. And that shows authority. Even if you're not the authority, if you put if you present yourself in a shock and awe package, so to speak, then you become the authority.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying, it's all about your package.
It's all about you, so to speak. Exactly. Lastly, let's see. Let's kind of wrap, since we're on short on time. We'll kind of wrap things up here, Sean. Okay. Most people think that they and others purchase through a process of rational thought, arriving at a decision. This is not how most people buy at all. Most people arrive at the decision first and then go through the process of rationalization.
Yep. That is so
true or
true.
false?
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yep.
Like people, as soon as they, I heard somebody say in the past year, when people are like reading your sales materials or your marketing material, the number one question they're asking, am I a person that buys a product or service like this?
Yes.
Like, so they're looking for clues that, yes, I'm the person that buys this. Right. So that could be anything. Could be the colors of the company, could be images on the website, could be just about anything. And as soon as they see that, they're like sold, right? And then they start rationalizing with the facts and the figures and the price and everything else.
That's right.
But yeah, and we know, and sometimes, I mean, there's some studies coming out now about like, there's a study where they flashed images in front of people And some were like happy images, some were scary images. Like, so you might have snakes or a baby laughing, totally different randomized order. And
Right.
what they found out is that people had, and they would measure like minor facial responses, using a camera and electrodes and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
What's crazy is people were making decisions from a gut level before up to like 0.3 seconds before the image ever showed.
Wow.
Like somehow, I mean, this is crazy stuff. We're getting into, quantum stuff and all this again, but like the intuition was so high and so strong that they knew what was coming, even though it was randomized.
Yeah.
That they had already made a decision about how that picture made them feel before the picture even showed. And that's why, like, a lot of times you can write copy, and if you're just in a really good mood when you write copy, or when you read copy, sometimes you can tell, like you get an email from somebody, you can like, that feels off, like something's off. Like you just you feel an energy where it either feels desperate or it feels whatever. And you're like, ooh, I don't like that. And the other times, like there's no marketing tactics or anything in it, but the email just hits you really good, or an ad hits you really well.
Sure.
And I think it's because there's some certain energy and stuff behind it. Getting a little woo-woo and crazy, but there's a lot of science going on from people like Joe Dispenza and these guys that are showing that we actually make decisions even precognitive, like before we even realize what we're looking at, we've already made decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
So a lot of times you'll read a headline or read an offer, or see an ad, you've already made the decision. Now you're just clicking through to figure out ways to justify what you really want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. If Jonathan, if you see an ad for a new driver, like as soon as you see it, you're like, I'm in. Now you're clicking through and spending the next hour trying to figure out, okay, do they give me enough here to actually pull the trigger on this?
Right.
If you want,
well, I'll give you an example. I made a purchase this week. So I've got 2 teenagers. They're starting their own, I guess, spring lawn care business. So I'm making an investment in them. And this week I went out and I'm like, okay, so I got to get a 0-turn mower. Yep. I got to get a weed, we've got a weed eater, but I wanted to get them kind of like more of a backpack blower, professional, blower, weed eater, you name it. Yep. So I'm like, oh man, I've got to like look around to find this stuff and help them. And so I start getting on like Marketplace, which is like one of the go-tos. And here I find a local company in here that's advertising a package deal where they present, like, they got the trailer with a 0-turn mower, with a backpack blower, a weed eater, all the stuff that you need. It's like the starter kit for anybody that's getting into a landscaping business.
Yep.
Right. And I'm like, that's what I need.
Yeah. One-stop shop.
So I don't care. I mean, they're pricing this stuff out, and it's reasonable. The fact that, they got everything priced out and it's reasonable. Are they a little higher than if I, price this stuff out individually? Yeah. If I, bought the mower separately and the trailer separately and the weed eater and the blower and all these things, yeah, I'd probably pay a little more. But I'm looking for packaging, right?
For ease.
And that's what I told them. I said, I went to this company in Knoxville, a company called Knoxville Power Sports. And I literally told them when I was making the purchase decision this past week and buying this trailer combo with a mower and all this stuff for my kids and bringing it home and parking it in our garage so that they can start mowing yards this summer, including my own yard for free and other properties for free. I told them, I said, I told this company, I said, you guys are brilliant. You guys are one of the few companies out there that I've seen that's actually positioning yourself and creating a package deal, right? For mowing equipment.
Right.
Because you saved me a ton of, like, you've got a 0-turn, mower, good quality mower on a trailer with all the equipment, fuel, everything.
Yeah. So now you don't have to figure out, will this the mower fit on this trailer? Is it right?
Exactly.
Does it hold enough weight?
Starter
Like
kit.
they've done all the math. They've done the thing. So as
That's
soon
right.
as you saw that, you made a decision, and
I
then you
made a
just started.
decision right there, and then I justified it.
Yeah.
Like,
Then you
even
started
though I was
clicking
paying
through.
more for it, I justified it to my wife, and it's like, it's all together. I don't have to look around. This saves me a ton of time.
They can start mowing tomorrow. Like,
that's right. I
Yeah.
I just go there, buy it, pick it up, and hook it up to my to my Jeep and take it home.
Yep.
So that was, I mean, that's a lesson for any business out there. And I told him, I said, you guys are brilliant for doing this, because I see no other business out there. Lowe's and Home Depot could make a fortune if they just thought about doing this, but they don't.
And what's
do
funny
this.
is they sell all of it.
And they sell it
together.
but they piecemeal it out. Yeah, exactly. They have all of this equipment.
You got to figure out what goes together.
Exactly. You have to figure it out.
I mean, they do that with appliances, right? I mean, a lot of Home Depot and Lowe's now have especially for, they kind of started back in the flipping, when flipping was super popular.
Right.
They started doing these appliance packages. You get the
$2,000
package, the $4,000 package, or the, whatever luxury package, but it includes your stove, your fridge, your microwave, like everything's there. Absolutely. And all matches.
Right.
Ordered it once, it's done.
Yep.
Yeah. Packages always have always sold well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care what business you're in. If you package things and make it simple for, the whole, I guess the lesson here is make it easy for people to buy, right? Yep. People that don't know what they're needing and don't know all of the accessories and what they need.
Well,
and
it goes back to authority too, right? It's like, if I put a package together for you as a company, like it shows some of it goes back to the thing we said about saying yes or no. It's basically saying, yes, you need all these things.
Yep.
I've already decided for you. You don't have to think about it. I know what's best for you.
Absolutely.
This is the package you need.
That's right.
If you're going to start a business, you need this package. If you're going to flip a kitchen, you need this. You need this package.
Yep.
And that's a type of authority. By packaging stuff, you're actually creating authority by saying, these are the things that go together. This is what you need.
That's right.
Any good salesman, it's basically assuming the sale, right? It's like, you need this, 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 and this. Here it is. And that confidence and that already thought out, all that stuff gets people to be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
I'll take it.
And consumers like me are going to say thank you for doing that, because you've saved me a ton of time, right?
Yep.
Because that's, I mean, honestly, that's the kind of consumer that you want, is the kind of guy that doesn't have the time to figure it out.
Yep.
He's looking to invest in that, whatever that is. And he doesn't have the time to figure it out. And you've done the research and you've done the packaging for him. He's going to say, thank you.
Yep.
This is what I need. It's business in a box to start with. Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
So.
All right. Good stuff. I think this is our longest episode yet.
Close to it. We'll have to split this one up. Yeah, that's all I got, Sean, man. Cool. It's been fun. Yeah.
So if we split these up, then that means the next episode is number 300.
That's right. So next week is number 300.
Wow.
We need to bring some boys on. Like, reach out to some past guests. Maybe Ben. You think Ben will come on?
Yeah.
Get Ben, David. I don't know. We'll have to reach out to some folks and get them on. Should be a fun episode.
Yes, Bill from Story Sales Machine. I don't know if that's enough notice for him, but he might be able to get on.
Yeah, that'd be great. Love to have him on, because he's coming out with a new product, by the way, right?
Yeah. Yep. He's got some stuff going on.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, we do have some guests that are starting to line up for March, so you guys won't have to.
That's
listen
right.
Just us. We'll bring some guests on.
Ad zombies. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, those guys will be fun.
Yeah.
That's the end of the month. Actually, on my birthday. So
awesome.
Great month for birthdays.
That's right. You and I both, man.
Yes.
Right there at the end.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast channels, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeart, iTunes, you name it. And as always, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week on the is that 300th episode of Persuasion by the Pint.
Wow.
That's
cool.
is 6 years in the running. Can you believe it? We're on our sixth year.
6 years?
And yeah,
It was
6
like-
years.
Wow.
2018 was that
Huh.
maybe fifth? It's
Fifth
either
year, I think.
Yeah, fifth year.
Still pretty impressive.
Fifth year, 300. Yeah, 300. Yeah, 300.
Yeah.
So, wow,
Math-
that's amazing.
Jonathan's been hitting the fifth there at his desk, so he's like,
Exactly. Just thanks for listening. We'll see you
Yes.
next time.
see ya.